All right, what's up, y'all? Monday, January 16th. I'm gonna drop these nuggets at noon. For decades now, I've been telling individuals that judges, despite what you guys may think, judges can't do what they want to do. And the unfortunates of a lot of you guys is you're so scared of the court system, you don't believe anything other than the judge can do whatever he or she wants to do. So I'm gonna tell you a couple of stories, and then what I'm gonna do is first I'm gonna tell you the perspective on that. Then I'm gonna tell you a couple of stories. When I went to school to learn and understand law and how to proceed and understand the structure, etc., my professor knew I was going through something, because the things that we talked about, he obviously knew. The questions that I asked, he obviously knew. So for those that was with me for years, you heard me say this story, and the truth of it is the reason as to why it has never changed. I was in law school one time, and of course I was going through this. I was going to go to school to be a computer tech, and I remember I was talking to this woman at Jefferson's Cafe in Montclair, New Jersey, and she was a staffing person. She worked at a job research or staffing agency, and she said, don't go to school for that. It'd be a warehouse job in 10 years. She said, so don't go to school for that. So I ended up going to school for law. And I remember when I decided, okay, I'll switch, and I'll go to school for law. And so I just thought it was perfect, anyway, went to school for that, switched and went to school for that. And I remember I remember my professor and I used to have long conversations. Honestly, I think my professor liked me, because I probably was the only one in school going through something. So I brought to lesson a lot of scenarios that the professor was glad that he was able to teach. So I was in school one day, and he was telling us about the order of a judge. And I'm here to tell y'all that a judge is supposed to protect your constitutional rights, not violate them. If you can't remember anything that I ever said in over the 100,000 videos that I ever did, remember that. You guys go to court and allow your constitutional rights to be violated, but you never mention it. You never help the judge understand that that's what he or she is supposed to do. So I remember I was talking to my professor, and I remember saying the judge can do whatever they want. And who told you that? Just as stern as I'm looking into the camera right now. Who told you that? Who told you that? I said they can. He said, I know. I heard you when you said that. My question to you is, who told you that? In true litigation form. And that's when I found out. He said, there's an ethics committee that governs judges, and a violation with a judge, 3 violations get them removed off the bench, but each violation, a violation is equivalent to this is what he said. He didn't tell me about the 3 get him kicked off the bench. I found that out later. But what he told me was, he said, An ethics violation to a judge is equivalent to getting a DWI in a playground full of children. I always remembered that. So in remembering that, I will say to you this. The reason why a lot of you guys don't understand that when you go to court and the judge don't let you speak, the judge don't let you submit evidence, the judge allowed a mother to say whatever, it's number one, it's the breakdown in your perspective. But you guys don't understand when a judge allows this is a violation of their very oath that they took to protect your constitutional rights. And so you guys allow this nonsense. This is why when my clients tell me this, I tell them, get the court transcripts. When I see it on the court transcripts, then I'm like, okay, now we cooking. Because I could look at what a judge say and I can tell you if it's a violation or not. I know. I can look at a violation. I can listen to the words of a judge and say, oh, that's a violation. They're not supposed to say that. So if I can simplify everything by what I'm saying is, the biggest reasons why you're under the perspective and you're under the belief that a judge can do whatever he or she wants is because you don't know any better. You just don't know. So if I tell you that I know, then if I tell you that I know, then if I know, then let me move over. If I tell you that I know, then that means that I could actually look out. I can actually look at a transcript, which means I'm gonna look at the transcripts and see what you said and see what the judge said, and then I can say this is a violation. I can draft it up for you and get it filed for you in federal court. All right. So if you understand that, then you'll stop with this nonsense that a judge can do whatever they want. Now, that is the structure of court. I'm going to give you my perspective on what it simply is. And what it simply is this. You guys hear me say all the time that if you call us, we're going to block you. I don't want to deal with people that don't listen. You hear me say that all the time, right? Who can tell me to change that? Who? Nobody can tell me to change that. This is my company. This is my business. If someone has a boss, that means that boss is their authority. You guys act like judges just come to court, they go into the courtroom and say, is anybody using courtroom 8? No. Okay. I'm going to be the judge for courtroom 8. Everybody got to listen to me. That's not how I go. As long as they have a boss, they are governed. And as long as they are governed, they have rules. So I'm going to introduce you to a couple of perspectives and narratives to help you understand what I'm talking about. When I was in the military, when I first went in the military, post-dated checks were big in the 80s. In the 80s, post-dated checks were big. These check cashing joints that made it bigger to the everyday citizen, But next to Army bases in the 80s, post-dated checks were big. And when I first went in the military, my bank was at Carteret Savings and Loans on Roosevelt and Bloomfield Avenue in Newark, New Jersey. And my money was going there. All right? And so when I first went in the military, I went to Fort Dix, New Jersey. I'm from New Jersey, so it was still home. And then I went to Edgewood, Maryland. I used to come home on the weekends. And then I went to Texas. And then when I went to Texas, I got a little sketchy, like, how am I gonna get my money? Remember, this is the 80s. Debit cards weren't out. Debit cards was not out yet. They wasn't out. All right. So I got to Texas. My first time I went to Texas was in '89, and I came home in 1991. I went to close my bank account. No, it was 1989 when I came down on orders to go to Texas. I went to Carteret Savings and Loans and said, I need to close my bank, blah, blah, blah. They was like, why? I said, because I'm coming down on orders to go to Texas, and blah, 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 blah. They was like, well, you can still access a bank in Texas. I said, what? They said, yeah. You take this card right here, and every automated teller machine, now called the ATM, we never called them ATMs. We called it the full automated teller machine. They said, wherever you see a Cirrus logo, you can get money out of the bank. And I was like, bullshit. They was like, no, unbullshit. And I was like, okay. And I remember when I got to Texas in May of 1989, the very first thing that I did, I went to a teller machine and I got money out, and I called my mom and said, Ma, I'm down here in Texas. She says, I know. I said, but I went to the ATM, automated teller machine, and I got money out. She was like, what? Now back to the story. I ended up in 91, I wanted to change all that, and I kind of messed my money up. So I couldn't get access to my money, so I went to write a post-dated check. And then my money went to my new bank, and I bounced the check. When I bounced the check, Sergeant First Class Badalis, said to me that you're going to have to get your ID card stamped, no checks cashed, and you're going to have to, on Saturday, you're going to have to go to a check writing class. This was the third offense when I had only did it the first time. First time, you just get a verbal warning. But for the third offense, for the first time, they were saying, I'm going to get everything, right? I said, I want to go to the first sergeant. Took me in front of the first sergeant, spoke to him. I seen the first sergeant look over Sergeant Badalis' shoulder, look back, and then when I came to talk to him, he tried the very thing that don't work on me. He tried intimidation tactics. I don't know why people try to intimidate me, but intimidation, it don't work on me, right? So the first sergeant was like, you're going to the class, blah, 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 blah. I said, oh, really? In my head, I said, oh, really? I said, okay. I went and talked to a colonel, a full-bird colonel, battalion commander. He marched me back to my company. He marched me back to Bravo Company, 15 Forward Support Battalion, and said, I want to see your first sergeant. The captain was in there. And he said to the captain, he said, Captain, I want to see your first sergeant. Yes, sir. He said, Specialist. I said, Sergeant, you're dismissed. I said, okay. I said, okay. Needless to say, I never went to the check writing class. When I told people about it, they jaw dropped. You reported top? Now, anybody that was in the military knows you just signed your death certificate. But I'm going to tell you one thing about me. I knew I was never going to fuck up. I just knew I never was going to do wrong. So I didn't have to worry about, oh, I need to do right by somebody so when I get in trouble, I'll have some credit with them. Remember, I'm the same dude that told my dad, go kick rocks when I was 17. So you can't tell your dad to kick rocks and then turn around and say, at 19, Dad, I need your help. I got locked up. I need you to bail me out. No. I believe in me. Another story. So basically what I'm saying to you is, even a first sergeant in the military has a boss. You guys believe, for whatever reason, that you need to be nice to a family court judge. You guys believe that every perspective and narrative that they say, they're right. You guys believe that they can say to you, you're not going to see your kid. You'll never see your kid. I'm going to make your child support $1,000 a day. You guys keep believing that. For whatever reason. You guys believe that. I don't know why. I don't know what is going through y'all brain to make y'all believe, to make y'all think, to make it even appear as though you got to be nice to a family court judge. I don't know what's going on in y'all brain. So allow me. I had a court date. But by me understanding court, I knew something was real fishy about the notification that they gave me. They said, you are hereby summoned to court for child support. It didn't have if it was an upward modification, a downward modification. It didn't have anything. The letter, it wasn't a court stamp. It wasn't nothing. How was I to understand or even verify the authenticity of this letter? I just got this letter, and because I knew law, I broke it down and sent it to the head family court judge at that time at 212 Washington Street, Judge Sally Floriana. And her court clerk, Elizabeth, gave me a call 5 times. So let me make sure we clear. The head family judge calls you 5 times. I'm not an attorney. I'm just an average everyday dude that started the League of Dads. What makes me so important? What makes me so important is the letter that I sent to the judge, helping him understand. I don't know who you think you're talking to, but if you don't tell me all the things in this letter, I will file a federal injunction against this court, and you could explain to them, listen what I'm about to say, why you are violating my constitutional rights to a fair trial. Now, what I said earlier was, it is the judge's job to protect your constitutional rights to a fair trial, but instead, you guys allowed them to violate them. And you allow a judge to violate your constitutional rights to a fair trial for no other reason than you're scared. There you are. You're scared. You're scared, so you allow a judge to violate your constitutional rights to a fair trial, and you say to yourself, I'm just not going to say nothing, this and all that, because if I do, they're not going to give me custody. If I do, listen, if a judge don't give you custody, you don't think you can ask them why? Yeah, I've drafted up plenty of motions where I told the judge, I just drafted up a judge. I just drafted up a motion Friday for an individual that the judge told him, damn, are they closed? I think they closed. I came all the way over here to get my stuff, and I think they closed. I remember I seen a sign on the door. But they will be closed. Yeah, they closed. I forgot I seen that sign yesterday. Forgot. So why did Judge Sally Floriana's court clerk call me 5 times? The reason why she called me 5 times is because, like I said, if you think you're gonna send me a letter, and I said in the letter, if you think you're gonna send me a letter to come to court, if you think you're gonna put a stamp on a letter, and you're gonna put a letter in an envelope and tell me to come to court under child support, you're not telling me if it's an upward or a downward, so I don't know how to prepare for my case. You're not even telling me who I'm coming to see, so I don't know if I got an ethics violation. It could be a conflict of interest. I could ask and file a motion to move to another person. This piece of paper don't have a court seal on it, so I don't understand the authenticity of this letter. And finally, you're not even telling me how much time do I got to respond to this letter. And because I know all that, and I was correct, they said, you better reach out to this guy and square him away so he don't file that federal injunction and get us a strike. So when I spoke to Elizabeth, Judge Sally Floriana's court clerk, she said, and I quote, Mr. Smith, she said, Mr. Smith, it is for a modification. It's for ADIA, because they never say a TIA. ADIA filed for an increase in child support. We did send it. Another letter is coming to you. Blah, blah, blah. They said, okay. All right. I goes to court. I'm in front of the hearing officer. Now, remember, I told you I cursed out a hearing officer. I did. I told y'all that. Right? So I goes in front of the hearing officer, and when we go inside, they already told them. They knew who I was. They was now on notice because I put in a letter that I mailed to them. I said, I am Christopher Smith of the League of Dads. That's why. And they heard about the League of Dads for about 3 years up until that point. So now they're like, oh shit, this guy is the truth. He's coming. He's here, right? Finally, I came up out of the shadows. I need y'all to follow me. So that's why I got the attention or the response that I got. And so I goes to court. Remember, I told y'all I cursed out a hearing officer. So I goes to court, and we goes inside this little room, and I go in there, like I need to start telling y'all again. I don't tell y'all as much. Go in there with a pen and a pad and just write down names. Anyway, I goes in there doing my protocol, writing down names, and they looking at me like they feel my air. And this hearing officer got Esquire in front of her name. I got a rule. I don't with Esquires. They mean nothing to me. I want somebody that I can put their head on a platter. I want somebody where I can say, yo, belongs to my boot. All right? So I'm writing everything down, and the hearing officer, she's nervous. And she's just turning the page. She ain't even looking down. She's just turning the page. I don't know what. She's you put in for a modification? I said, I ain't put in for nothing. She said, Tia said, he's going to claim that he wasn't served. That's how Tia talks. Tia, when she's a black chick, but when she's around white people, she sounds like a pretty little white girl. So she said, he's going to claim he wasn't served. Just like that, right? So she says, she's turning the page. You put in for a modification? I said, who you talking to? I ain't put in for nothing. Get out of my courtroom. Get out of my, you're going to come in here and be disrespectful. I said, who the fuck do you think you're talking to? And then the bailiff, come on, let's go talk to the judge. I tell y'all, hearing officers don't mean nothing. Y'all keep thinking they mean something. That's why they have the name officer. They give them all these names, these officers, guardian. They give them all these names so you think you can invoke respect. You ain't got to respect none of them. You keep believing that though. Another video. So I then go in front of James Triano. We goes up to his courtroom. And Judge James Triano says, like, I need y'all to step out the courtroom for a second. We step out the courtroom. And then we outside, we sitting outside the courtroom out here. Bing dong! The elevator door opens and 3 big bailiffs. They come out. And one of them, the last one, is looking at me like, I swear, I'm so oblivious to the nonsense. We goes back in the courtroom, and now there's 4. The guy that said, come on, and those 3 guys. There's 4 bailiffs. And the one that said, come on, he's pacing in front of me. So I goes in there and I look at him. 2 of them is up against the wall. I said, wow. I swear to God, man, I felt like a rock star. I swear to God, I felt like a rock star. So I'm in the courtroom, and the judge says to me, Mr. Smith, you are here because you had a problem with my hearing officer. I said, I ain't no problem with your hearing officer. Your hearing officer decides she want to be rude. We're not talking about it. I said, Judge, by the mere fact that you brought it up for discussion makes it open up to the court. Okay. It started. So I'm going back and forth with the judge. And he asked me, well, what's the extent of your law knowledge? I said, I'm not going to answer that. Only to know this. But I will say this. You guys seem to have a problem with anybody that understands the law other than stop on red and go on green. You're going to have to forgive me for understanding all the laws in which I am governed by. He says, okay, because I told him I was improperly served, and I wasn't. I even said prior to that, I said, just the head family court judge, he also said that process was broken. And because process was broken, you have to restart it. That Judge James Triano, he looked left, he looked right. He said, this is my courtroom. As to say, I don't care what Judge Sally Floriana said. This is my courtroom. I said, well, I don't know that to be the case. What I know is this courtroom belongs to the people. You just reside over it. Like, I mean, who do you think you're talking to? Right? Y'all can go ahead and think y'all can continue to go to court and think you committed a crime and allow them to violate your constitutional rights, but that judge is sitting on that bench to protect them. All the powers that be are violating your constitutional rights, and y'all just allow that to continue to happen because you don't understand this. I do. I went to school and I learned law. All right? So then after 40 minutes of going back and forth with Judge James Triano, he finally says, I said, look, I was improperly served for this hearing And if you proceed with this hearing, you are in direct violation of my constitutional rights to a fair trial. So he proceeds to tell me, okay, I'm gonna give you that. But then he gives me a threat, because they always gotta say and have the last word. So he says, well, if I give you this adjournment, I'm just gonna give you a warning, because he can't just shut his mouth. I'm gonna backdate this to the date that she put in. I said, you see, Your Honor, that's where I have the problem. I said, I don't believe this woman filed a motion with the courts, because you cannot present me with one. So are you telling me that you can go ahead and give this woman something she did not ask for? And he just started talking after I said, that's not what I asked you. I said, what I said, Your Honor, can you give this woman something that she didn't ask for? He started talking again. I said, that's not what I asked you. Remember, there's a bailiff pacing in front of me. Be quiet, let the judge talk. I went like this, a clap. I said, that's not what I asked you. What is the question? When the judge said, okay, what is the question? I looked at the bailiff. I said, see, you can hang out, buddy. You'll learn something. So I said, I don't believe that a motion was presented. I believe that Atila Sean Bradley simply picked up the phone, and because she's a woman, the clerk on the other end of the phone just put in for a court date, because you cannot produce to me the motion. So, are you telling me that you can go ahead and give this woman something she asked for? He said, yes. I said, okay. In my head, I was like, I would like to see that happen. So that was on December 10th. He said, I want you back in here June 5th. I'm sorry, January 5th. And he said, I want you to bring in all of your pay stubs. I said, I don't get pay stubs. He said, you stated earlier that you have income. I said, I get income, but it's not pay stubs. He said, this is all he was doing. Like, you're a pistol, bro. I get it. You ready for war. Yeah. This is how y'all need to be, but y'all not. All right? Now, he didn't violate my constitutional rights, because he gave me what I asked for. So I'm going to tell y'all what I did, knowing that it wasn't going to stick. I drafted up a federal charge against Judge James Triano. Once again, I knew it wasn't going to stick, but I bluffed, and he didn't call. All right? Let me say that again. I drafted up a federal charge stating that he violated my constitutional rights. So when I drafted it and filed it in federal court, it was a lie. But I did it for this. When I sent Judge James Triano a copy of the federal charge, I said, you wanted to understand the extent of my law knowledge? I said, read this federal charge and you'll understand. I mailed it to him December 23rd. Remember, we was in court. December 10th, 2006. December 23rd, I believe that year was on a Friday. So let me see. Because the courts was open and I was shocked. Or if it wasn't on a Friday, I was shocked that they was open on the 23rd. Hey Siri, what date was December 3rd? Hey Siri, what's date? Hey Siri, on what day was December 23rd? I'm fucking up. Hey Siri, on what date was December 23rd, 2006? Oh, okay, it wasn't that. It was on a Saturday. So, but anyway, what was I saying? Oh, so I mailed him an ethics violation. And I mailed him the ethics violation. And then I went back to court January 5th. Oh, yeah. December 6th is when I got custody of my daughter. That's what happened in December 6th. I got custody of my daughter. So I went back December 5th, January 5th. When I went back January 5th, we goes into the courtroom. We sitting down there, out there in front of the room like everybody else. A man comes out and says, Bradley and Smith. Yeah. You guys are going on the 8th floor. Courtroom, whatever. Get on the elevator, goes on the 8th floor. We goes out on the 8th floor. Yo. Nobody else is on the 8th floor. Nobody else. Right? Nobody else is on the 8th floor. Nobody else is on the 8th floor. I'm like, okay. The courtroom that they tell us to go to, I go to the door and look at it, and I see it's locked. I see it's locked. So I'm like, okay. They told us to come to this room, and it's locked. About 15 minutes go by, I hear the door unlock. And I go in there, yo, it's this old, raggedy bailiff. This dude is probably 80 pounds, like 6'2", 80 pounds. I'm looking at him, I'm saying, what the fuck, what's going on here? We in there talking, he just, I'm trying to read the room because I'm like, yo, is the feds gonna come in here and snatch me up? What's going on here, right? But what happened was the judge went from pit bull to poodle. That was his way of saying, I'm gonna get this dude out of here. And he knew up front he wasn't gonna give Atia LaShawn Bradley that increase. And that was his way out of violating my constitutional rights. See, one thing y'all gotta understand is the judge will always give y'all an out instead of just coming straight out and saying you won. So what was the objective here? Atia LaShawn Bradley wanted an increase. I said, if you go forward with this, because I didn't get a copy of the motion, you're in direct violation of my constitutional rights. You're not violating my constitutional rights. If do all this song and dance, you didn't give her what she wanted. We can go through the formalities, and y'all get caught up in the formalities. I know how to read the room. So after we was in there, then the judge, now all of a sudden, but I told him when I put on the letter, you wanted to know the extent of my law knowledge? This is the extent of my law knowledge. Christopher Smith, president and founder of the League of Dads. Pleased to meet you, right? This guy, I told him, and I also told him, and that was the first time I ever put in a document, this is my testimony. When I get in there, don't ask me no questions. So I remember when he asked me, he said, Mr. Smith, can I ask you a question? He asked me, could he ask me a question? I gave him this look like, you better tread nicely. And the one question he asked, after Atia LaShawn Bradley tried to get him my Dun and Bradstreet report, he said, can I ask you a question? I said, yeah, sure. He said, what do you have to say about this? I said, what is Atia LaShawn Bradley insinuating? He said, I don't know. Of course you do know. She gave you my Dun and Bradstreet numbers to insinuate that this is me having income. But because he said he don't know, if he would have said, well, she's saying you have income, like a lot of y'all judges, like a lot of you guys allow judges to say things like, she's insinuating that you got income, by the judge saying that she's saying that without her actually saying it, that's leading the witness. You didn't know that, did you? Yeah, that's called leading the witness. And a lot of you guys, once again, you continuously allow these things to happen and you don't understand the wrong that is done in it. So that's why he said, I don't know. But he knew. Attila Sean Bradley was trying to say, here's his business. Give me a kiss. Mwah, mwah. Come here. Mwah. Attila Sean Bradley was trying to say, see, he has a business. Look at this. This is his business thing, right? People, let me tell you something. Even if you have your own business, it doesn't mean you're making money. Every businesses fail all the time. There are businesses all the time that report no profits. Don't get, if you have a business and they make $1,000 every quarter and you make $40,000 a year, it doesn't mean that it's profitable. Profits is anything above what it took you to make that money. Another video. You guys don't understand that neither. All right. So what I'm saying to you guys is this. He said, nope, you didn't violate. I mean, you didn't. He said to Atia, Miss Bradley, get out my way. Mwah. He said to Atia, you did nothing to prove. You did nothing to prove your case here. I'm not going to grant you an upward modification. People, this is why. So I'm gonna end this with this. I took all of my experiences, and that is in fact what I'm selling. Everything that I tell y'all, I've actually done. I'm not doing this under the perspective of, I think if I tell y'all this, I think if I draft up a motion saying this, it may work. No, I'm telling y'all it's gonna work. I've actually did it. And y'all need to remember that. Y'all need to remember that. If you don't remember anything else that I say, understand everything that I say I actually did. I filed the bankruptcy so they can drop a warrant. I did all this. I did it. I tell y'all who to call to verify it. I'll tell y'all all this. So let me run in here right quick. What are you doing, little dog? What are you barking for? It's just a water head. I hear you with your surround sound. All right. What are you doing, man? Get off me, man. All right, so like I was saying, and I appreciate you guys for sticking in there. Like I was saying, you guys gotta understand the mission of a judge. You guys lose the mission of the court, the process and all that. You allow one wrong, and then you allow the courts to try to cover up that one wrong act with things that are right. That's not how it goes. It's not how it goes. It's not how it goes. You can't, the courts can't do one wrong thing and then say, well, the next step we'll get it right. Whenever wrong is done, you have to understand, if you witness it, stand on it. And that's the thing you guys got to understand more than anything. Stand on it. Listen, I'm not afraid to go to jail if I didn't do nothing. I done sued the police department. I sued the Orange, New Jersey Police Department. My family sued the East Orange, New Jersey Police Department. We're 2-0. So I don't understand this perspective and narrative about fears when you've done nothing wrong. If you understand this more than anything, courts are in place and judges are there for one reason and one reason only, not to violate your constitutional rights. And the end words to that is to a fair trial. When y'all go to court and y'all don't get to see her income, but you get assessed an amount and you have no idea what you guys just that's a violation of your constitutional rights. 732-875-9111. The information will be below the video. Do not call. Just text $50 consultation. I'm ready when you're ready. All right.